So, where do we start? I thought it would be good if we let you each do a small introduction to yourself and tell me something interesting about your organization that the audience might need to know. So let me start with you, Nambi, please.
Um, Most of you might know, this is the third year I'm here. Nambi Srinivasan. I run the full systems or technology for Rabo Bank Australia and New Zealand. For the audience who don't know Rabo Bank, we are a Dutch-based bank in Australia from 1994. And we are one of the oldest clients of Temenos. So relationship is from 2003. So we are into food and agri business. We have about 96 branches. So we have online savings, which is a digital bank where we get the money from moms and pops. Anyone can come in, deposit. We use that to our lending. And yeah, it's been good to be back here. Nice location.
Thank you. And I think an interesting point, does anybody know what Temenos was called when Nambi's organization first engaged us? Globus, thank you. Oh God, I thought that was going to be a 100-point question. Clearly,
after 23 years, we decommissioned Globus last year as part of our modernization.
Last year? Oh my Lord.
We upgraded to T24, 2003 Globus, 2013, 2013. And then we kept, we didn't upgrade for 8 years, R50 to R23 we did in 11 months record time, touchwood, still running well. And then still we had Globus, regulatory requirements to keep running, looking at the transactions back in those days. And we managed to move that off and you're off Globus.
Oh, wonderful. Speaks a lot to our stability. Gratuitous plug, of course. SG, please.
Thanks, guys. Tech Mahindra has been a partner of Temenos for 25 years now. We have many successful implementations over the years, including at Rabo Bank. And we are a larger SI partner. We handle not only the implementation of the package itself, but also integrate it with the ecosystem and also pitch in to help banks figure out how to, for example, extract the data from legacy, integrate with other applications, and so on. So we are an end-to-end SI partner. That's what we are known for as Tech Mahindra.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So this conversation is about payments, and as I said, there's a lot of transformation happening in this space. I might start with you, SG. Can you give us a sort of a global picture and then maybe localize it in terms of what you're seeing is really driving change in this payment space?
Sure. We used to talk about real-time payments as the next frontier. Gone are those days. That day is here. Real-time payments are a reality. How quickly can the banks transition to that is the bigger question. Of course, it's not going to be overnight. And there are these RTGS and bulk payments that are going to continue in the life cycle for some time. But clearly, the world is moving to real-time payments. Now, is that going to solve all the problems? Is that going to throw up more challenges? Obviously, yes. Fraud and AML is critically one of them that we have to monitor now in real time. And of course, from a customer standpoint, this is fantastic. For a small business user, think about it, their liquidity situation improves dramatically with real-time payments. The kind of fintech innovation that is going on can really revolutionize the market out there. I can go talk about 100 different benefits of real-time payments, but none of that is going to be simple. It's going to be a one bite at a time approach that the banks have to take rapidly, of course, but then eventually they have to get to that place where real-time payments is an imperative. It's an implementation.
Correct.
Having said that, the regulators are also trying to level the playing field for all the fintechs. They are having these open banking and Nexus and GCC coalition and everything else that is coming. Once the field is set that way, and the fintechs really take off and own the customers and provide so innovative solutions, this is a fantastic challenge for the banks. Banks should see this as an opportunity literally to either partner with a fintech or themselves morph into a fintech in some areas. It opens up a plethora of opportunities for the industry. That is where I see this. Regulators are indeed forward-looking in some of these areas where they are leveling the playing field. I really like that. And then it's opening a, like I said, whole host of opportunities for everybody in the market. This is where I see the revolution happening, Gus.
Thank you, SG. So lots of happening in real time opportunities, but also real time fraud and AML, and obviously opportunities for transformation through partnership and, dare I say, acquisitions. Maybe I think I heard behind the covers there. Let's go to you, Nambi, and talking more specifically about Rabo Bank. What do you see as the biggest trend shaping the future of payments?
Look, for us, we came down this journey of core modernization. So we had a 3-phase program, if anyone remember, right? One was the first was the contract. As Alex said, is that's important. We get the right partner and right product suite. Then we focus on the core modernization, is get the foundational piece, right? And we were at the juncture end of last year is we wanted to start doing back to core. That was the vision. We tried to do it. But then started looking at the product suites and then the integration with the payments, right? So we focused majority on start looking at, okay, how do we get the payment more to be modernized, right? When you say payments, as SG said, there's a lot of different types of payments. But then if you look at the industry here, we got real-time payments, which is coming from BICS, from the industry, from BICS to NPP, 2030, right? But if you look at the customers' expectations, right, they are, especially as a business banking, they rely on bulk. Now banks come in, that's where we are the conduit between, okay, from a single real-time to how do you get the bulk process coming in and then putting in, right? So that's the second. But then you start thinking like open banking and digital wallets. Of course, I'm not even going to start going to AI, what's going to happen. But then purely from the customer focus is liquidity. How fast do they get the money so they can do the process? So that's important for us. So that's where we are investing at the moment to start modernizing the payment journey. We are the first ones to work with terminals on the TPH. Looking forward to go live next year. We are working on SWIFT, which is the MT to MX migration, which is looking at going live in November. So those are the key areas we are focusing at the moment, I would say.
I'd like to just press you on something. You talked about that integration of real-time, open banking, and digital identity. Can you tell us more about what that looks like from a customer experience perspective?
Look, if you look at the customer, right, traditionally you is a friction in their journey, right? Payment should be in their mind is seamless, instantaneous, right? They want to make a payment, either it's transferring to the friends, to a business, or even cross-border, right? For them is money. They are not interested in the payments being stuck in a pending status or the cost, right? It should be very transparent, and that's what they are looking at. And we as banks have introduced that friction in the process. We need to uplift from there and start looking from a journey point. Like, I mean, that's what they're looking is I'm buying something and I don't want to go out of the journey and try to go. I need to log into my bank, make a payment, come back in. How seamless can we integrate in there? To the point on fintech or even open banking where we got players coming in and we should expose that APIs to them to make it happen. And that's the expectation.
Thinking about the range of customers that you serve, particularly in Asia Pacific, are you seeing some commonality with the experience that Rabo is having, or are there other areas of equal importance in transformation?
I'll answer that in two parts.
Yeah.
Short answer is absolutely yes. The ambition of many of these banks is to go exactly down the roadmap that Nambi is talking about. Quickly move over. First of all, there are a whole host of systems in many of these banks. Many of them are legacy. Some isolated cards, some specific types of payment systems, and so on. Consolidating them onto TPH will be a first great step to start that journey.
Got it.
So get all of them into a unified platform like TPH. It will at least give you a unified view, observability, a lot of optimizations that are possible. So that is the first step. And then you start looking at how to move bulk of it to real time. The real time payments won't scale overnight. They will take some time. There are businesses also that need to adjust to this new way of working. So it will be a journey. When it comes to that, at least when you have a common platform, you have an opportunity to tweak the flows, to optimize the route with which you can route that payment and so on. So the banks can get very smart about how to undertake this journey. For that, the first level of consolidation will indeed become the key. And that is the same thing that we are hearing across in the markets. Like I said it in two parts, right? First part is the ambition is common. Two, the journey towards that, if you start eating the entire elephant in one bite, it's not going to work. It has to be a bite-sized journey. And that is where an SI like ourselves will come into play. because we see many banks going through this journey. We see many of these successful as well as not so successful implementations, euphemistically speaking. And then we get the best practices out of it and we tell them, look, these are your trip points. These are the things that you should not be doing. These are the reasons why you should not be doing, because it failed in some other place because of these reasons. That is where the SI expertise comes into play, and hand-holding that, working along with the bank in that journey is precisely what I want to do, what we want to do. But more importantly, like I said, ambition is good, but the journey has to be undertaken cautiously with someone who has seen it, done that multiple times. That is the key.
Got it. Thank you. I want to pivot a little bit and go to regulations, our favorite topic. Let me start. And I don't know how to say this one. Is it ISO 20022, 222?
Yep.
I don't know. But ISO 20022. This is driving a lot of the change and transformation. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about your challenges and your journey so far with tackling this behemoth.
Look, as a bank, we have to be compliant. That's an industry mandate, right? Look, our challenges is around our product roadmap versus industry testing. And that was a challenge with the whole Swift. For us, it's only the Swift MT to MX, also what they call it. Right? Look, it's a beautiful standard, right? It's a critical element in my view from a payment point of view. Moving to an XML-based routing of payments. What it also allows for the banks is, like, there's no more limit, right? You can enrich what data you want. Where we are thinking beyond being a global bank, like they are huge in retail, right? And what we are looking at is how do we tackle cross-border fin crimes using that standard, right? We got elements there to enrich our data sets, what we plan, so what the client stands. So that's something we are looking at. Look, our journey is we are leveraging TPH to do that. As I said, the go live is November. The industry testing is critical for us to meet the timeline, so which we are working with the partners as well.
So this is about compliance, and sometimes we talk about compliance as challenges, but I think it also means opportunity to unlock value. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about how you're seeing this as an opportunity for the industry.
Sure, absolutely. All good points made by Nambi. I completely endorse all of that, in the sense that this is at least going to level the language that is being used. If I go back to the same example, right? In some countries, it's a queue. Some countries, it's a line. Whatever happens at the supermarket, right? Even at that level, there is no standardization of language. Imagine in the payments world, if the world cannot adopt to the same language. ISO 20022 essentially addresses that, making it uniform across the entire world. That is point number one. Point number two, from a regulation standpoint, what is the regulator really looking at? One, lower the barriers for business, for fintechs. Provide a level playing field. I covered this already. The second one is, from a customer standpoint, give them more choices. Give them more opportunities to exploit the applications that are coming up there from a fintech standpoint. Just to give you an example, guys, the level at which these fintechs are really revolutionizing it out there is a startup that focuses only on barber shops. I'm not kidding you. Only on barber shops, because they are providing a domain-specific payment solution.
Right.
There are markets where people want to get paid for hourly work that they do. You're talking real-time payments here.
Right.
They work on hourly basis and they want to get paid for that. So the expectations and the revolution out there is tremendous. At the same time, from a regulatory standpoint, they are worried about data privacy. If everything is out there, everything is an API and anybody can access it, of course the hackers will have a field day, right? So bringing in that control, bringing in that validation and regulations around that is going to be key and critical. In a situation like a global format like ISO 20022, it gets even more difficult, because the purview of the regulator is no longer that particular country. It spans across the world. So some sort of a coalition is required to manage fraud, AML, data privacy challenges, and so on. It is going to throw up certain interesting challenges. There are guardrails present today. They will be tested to the limit when we go full-time into real-time payments.
Let me pivot on that point. So a lot of what you guys have said today focuses on the end game being real-time payments. In reality, we're still in a batch world. Can they coexist? How do they coexist? Can you tell us about that?
Sure. Look, it will coexist a point in time, right? Today, the payment provider supports bulk or batch processing, right? There's an expectation. We can't expect, as I said in the start, the clients to send everything to be real time. Look, at some point, it will sunset. You would see volumes increasing. Everybody start moving into real time. The batches will start going down, and the banks have to play, right? Because you can't expect the clients to send everything in real time. So we have to be the conduit. There are challenges, I would say, to add, look, because from a people and process point of view, we have, like, for us, we take 25 years, 30 years. We have been running on a traditional batch process to move to real time. So we should also start looking at from a fraud and scam point of view. And that's something we are looking at while we are looking at the product modernization to touch base. We are also investing on looking at the fraud and the scam side of technologies. How, because today, if you look at it, because being a batch, our recoverability is very high. We are not in real time, right? So which means there's a friction in the process. I can stop, go back to other banks, get the money back. Real time introduces that the money is just within a second out of the country, right? So we need, as banks, we need to start thinking, okay, what are the technology we need? I know there's FAM, things like that, which Sriram spoke about, which introduces into automations of stopping a payment while it in real time. So that's something we are looking at and we're investing as well.
Can you tell us a little bit about the operational challenges of running both real time and batch? And let's think not beyond 2030, because hopefully they would have disappeared. Hopefully, I don't think so. But can you tell us about operational challenges?
Sure. It really depends on the situation in the bank. For example, if there are two isolated systems, one for batch and one for real time, then the challenges are far more than you can imagine. At least the onboarding processes, the consolidation and the onboarding and the validation processes, if they are run commonly, then at least there is some optimization in the process. But otherwise, if there are two isolated systems, then it's going to be far more difficult. However, there are quite a few steps in the entire value chain, in the entire process, that can be leveraged across both real-time payments as well as bulk. And such efficiencies can be driven. I know we are trying to sidestep from that AI word, but I'm going to use it now, where AI can come into play. One of the broader areas where AI applies is some sort of a pseudo integration of systems, where actual physical integration is still impractical. AI tends to be able, AI can essentially get the essence of one system and present it in a logical way to the other system so that there is a unified view coming across. This is one of the classic use cases of AI today. And that is where integration of data coming out of the bulk systems as well as the real-time systems can indeed be integrated, a consolidated dashboard being presented. In fact, if you want to go to the next extent, even in the bulk processing, typically banks have multiple choices depending on the SLA, depending on the cost. So intelligent routing of these payments, which TPH is immensely capable of doing, such optimizations are going to be the reality in the short term. And we are not talking short term in the terms of next week or 2 weeks. We are talking about quite a few years of bulk payments continuing to exist and in fact ruling the roost for some time. The balance won't tip to real-time payments so quickly. And all of these optimizations with ingestion of AI intelligently into the ecosystem is how we are going to survive and,
So I think what you're telling me is this 2030 date, it's not going to happen. It's probably. Yeah, I think that's a little bit up in the air. Let me pivot. I'm going to move forward. This is kind of a story about moving from batch to real time. It's sort of a story about BEX to NPP. But I want to open up the conversation to other payment types. So BPay, RTGS. What about those payment types? Are they going to continue to exist? Are they going to morph into NPP? What's the story for those?
your SLA commitments on many of them is going to continue. And you're not going to be able to walk away from those SLA commitments. Now, let me give you a real world example, right? And this did not happen in Tamanna's world at all. And just putting the disclaimer first. So there is a vendor who initiates a payment, and that payment system is supposed to take 2 hours to complete the payment as per the SLA, sends 100 trucks to pick up a material from an OEM for the so-called just-in-time inventory these days, for a while now. And if this, and I know in this particular case, the SLA was broken, the payment didn't go through in 2 hours, the trucks reached in 4 hours. What happens? there is disruption in the supply chain, and that was a critical part feeding into something else in the manufacturing area. So the entire chain collapses. Now, when someone is looking at suspense transactions in a particular system, it looks like we are looking at 20,000 records. They are not. There are 20,000 businesses that are disrupted. So the SLA management for bulk payments, whether it is near real time or end of day or whatever mechanisms they are, that is very important. Having said that, it doesn't mean that as a bank, you can afford to route it always through the most expensive and most guaranteed thing, because the banks will lose a lot of money doing that. And that balancing between them. And again, I'm going to bring in the concept of, I wouldn't call it go all the way to call it AI, but some intelligence available in terms of the performance of these networks. At what times, which routes are busier, cheaper, and optimized based on the tariffs, cost, time, and everything else. That intelligent routing is what is required. So, like I said, we are going to live with these bulk payments for a while.
Yeah.
Getting smart about it is the key.
On that point, what prioritization are you putting around the modernization of some of these batch options into real time?
Look, as I said, we are a business banking, right? So the batch is not going to disappear. Even when it's real time, we're going to have it. So what we are focusing at the moment is to SJ's point of leveraging on TPH, right? So we had the core. What we didn't do was to go build our own API to the payment. So that's what we had in our previous wish. With the modernization, we are investing in TPH. What we want is that routability to an extent. Leverage TPH to do that, right? So to that, I need to get the fundamentals, the foundational TPH piece in place. Once comes then, first, of course, we have to do the Swift, as I said, we have to do the industry point. Then we'll start looking at the real-time payment. Look, we also have Australia, but then we also have the New Zealand, which introduces a completely different infrastructure with settlements before interchange. BNZ would have that, right? That's our challenge. We have 7-day road, so we are compliant with inward. Now we need to focus on outward. Now, with challenge with the real time also, we are banks, right? We need to start looking at liquidity management, right? Say we are business banking, 15 million out of the door on a Sunday night. My treasury is not there. My markets are not there. So we need to start thinking from a people and process point of view, what's going to happen. And look, as a global bank, we rely on global as well. They don't run 24/7. So we have to start working with them now. So it is going to take us a while, but from an industry timeline, I'm comfortable where 2030, even before that, we should be able to move.
Excellent. So a data point for my team, there's a connection between payments and treasury. Start selling treasury. If you could give, we're gonna just a couple more questions, guys. But if you could give one bit of advice for people that are on this journey of transformation from, I'm going to say from batch to MPP, from BEX to MPP. Let's focus on that. Really narrow it down. What would it be?
I would say, first of all, understand why you are doing it and for who you are doing it within the bank, and understand the context in which your bank is operating. Because Rabo, with the focus on agri in Australian market, may have a different imperative from another retail bank, from another corporate bank. So first, why are you doing retail and who are you trying to target first? And make sure that you are able to service that segment first. So it, like I said, it's all bite-sized approach.
Yeah.
So have your roadmap, have your strategy in place, have your roadmap in place. Engage with an SI to make sure that an implementation also tracks to this. Rather than trying to do everything in one shot, there are certain segments of customers, certain segments of payments that can first be moved to TPH and then move to real time very quickly. Focus on those. Focus on continuous value delivery and business delivery. Do not wait for that big bang where you are going to consolidate from your 25 Myriad systems into one TPH one day and suddenly you are going to switch it on and it's all going to work.
Not going to happen.
Happens in movies only.
Nabi, what do you say?
Look, good points, right? Like I wouldn't say advice, experience speaks. Where we said is modernize your core. I know we are all very hesitant when it comes to core banking modernization. A lot of people don't want to do it in their career. I think that's the first step. Get it to the latest version. Leverage the product offering rather than you building. You also leverage the product offering. Bite one small size at a time. Don't go for a big bang. Take it in. But I would also, as I said before, focus on the fraud and scam prevention. That's important. You can't look at it in isolation. When payments comes in, you need to look at together and of course put your people in, right? We are doing for our clients, but then internal process and look at the people and how we're going to adopt to the future. So that's something we need to look at.
Okay, we're going to wrap up with an interesting quick set of questions here. Look, I was recently in Vanuatu, and in doing my preparation for Vanuatu, understanding the banking system there, there was this thing called custom payments, and it happens in the villages where they trade in pig tusks. And there's some guy apparently he's got $1 billion in pig tusks, and he's trying to convince the central bank to make it a currency of exchange, right? Think of paying with pig tusks. You could think of it in a more modern context here. I might in the future start paying you with Qantas frequent flyer points, right? Central bank digital currency. I don't know, your farm customers, maybe they trade in carrots, right? Who knows what the currency of the future is or what the mechanisms of currency are, especially with things like NFTs also appearing as a contract of trade. So can you give us a look into the crystal ball? What other innovative, interesting payments innovations do you see coming down the track?
Look, when you touched upon a few things, right? Look, payments is fiat currency at the moment. That's what we are focused on. We are highly regulated. But then if you look at the whole blockchain, don't quote me anywhere, right? It's a completely different, and that's what the fintechs can leverage, or they're leveraging more of the underlying technology over there and bringing in. Look, the future is unpredictable. I wouldn't know. Like our focus at the moment is within a regulated environment. What could we offer is what we are focusing on. You might have experience in from a side, but not for a bank, which is highly regulated, I would say.
I agree with you, by the way. What we are seeing is very unlikely we are going to see carrots as a currency in any time in the near future, certainly. But the way the friction is getting removed from the system is going to be very interesting. For example, there are fintechs today who will move money literally between countries, and we'll come to the regulations later. I'm putting the card first before I complete my sentence. Move money through bitcoins. So they do a compensating transaction at both sides. So the money moves from, let us say, Australian dollar to Bitcoin and Bitcoin to US dollars instantly. And this is how they transfer the money. Yeah, bypassing SWIFT, bypassing ISO 20022, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. Of course, they don't scale yet because they are a fintech and a startup. I use this example to just give you an idea as to how these fintechs are thinking. Yeah. The removing of the friction is not to put a bigger bus or a bigger car there. It is to fundamentally change the way the entire money is moving in the system. When things are going to that extent, and what is in business banking, one of the most common problems is supplier onboarding or customer onboarding for the bank and supplier onboarding for the corporate. Can we look at a pre-onboarded customer or a pre-onboarded contract? And there are fintechs offering this service. If you can have a credit score, you can always have a pre-onboarded customer in some central database that can be leveraged. Disruption is going to happen at a level that we can't imagine as of today. And that's a very good thing, by the way. And banks will only be one of the components of that. There will be a lot many more components out there that are going to disrupt the entire industry. However, when it comes to actual payments, it's going to still rely on an underlying currency. Now, is crypto going to become mainstream? Crystal ball? Yes, but backed by a real currency. So, a crypto backed by real currency is probably going to get the regulators nod in a meaningful way across the board. But again, it's still something that needs to emerge. Crypto is legitimized, but using that as a end-to-end payment system is yet to gain momentum.
Right. You heard it here by USDCs, I think it's called, US-backed digital currencies. Yeah, right. So a great thank you and round of applause to my really, really appreciate the conversation. Thank you, Nambi. Thank you. Thanks again. Thank you. And cheers. Thanks.